Hey, everybody, the Padre and the
Pritch.
Pritch and the Padre. We're here for 30 minutes, and I try to pick a theme every week, something that both of us can add some laughter and good feeling and faith and expression of how much we really do care for other people and what we're trying to do in our own lives to make a difference in people who haven't had what we have to grow up. I'm going to start off by saying the English have an expression. If somebody is in an accident in their car and they smash it up and they're standing there, they either make a call to AAA or they call a wrecker.
A wrecker.
A wrecker.
A wrecker.
The English people, when they have the same kind of accident, same car, everything, they call recovery. So it's a difference in our language, a very simple thing where we think of wrecker is almost so negative, there's going to be a mess. Where the English use that expression recovery. So call AAA and get a recovery vehicle.
And they'll look at you and go, "You mean tow truck wrecker?"
Yeah. Now, how would you do it in England if you were there?
Well, I would like to say, if anybody was here, I would like to, if it was opportunistic on your part, to immediately, forthwith, send for the recovery truck, the ramp truck, where we might exit and exfiltrate from this region.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry.
Yeah. I know you could probably do 20 minutes.
20 minutes on
absolutely
recovery.
Nothing.
Yes, of course.
Anyway, the difference in the language also is reflected in our when we celebrated earlier this month, July. We're recording this, Independence Day.
Yes.
And the two words inter means among, and it comes from pendere, which means to hang from or to hang among.
Hang among.
Yeah, we have a pendant which goes around your neck.
Sure.
Hangs around
Many
your
medals.
neck. But independence, while people and countries and parts of continents struggle to find their independence from whatever it is, individuals oftentimes do. But it's a long way from doing anything by yourself.
Right.
Even a country, if they want independence, they almost have to call on other countries to give them a hand.
This is what's going on in Ukraine right now.
So
right?
What we do as individuals,
we need each other.
We think we're independent, but we're really hanging from all kinds of social connections, all kinds of relationships that we have in life.
Interdependence.
Interdependence.
Right? Yeah. And well, that's, if you think back to the origins of our country, it was all of us, being together in unity to object to mistreatment by the monarch, King George III, that caused everybody to unify and then declare that they had to be independent of this kind of indifferent cruelty and taxation without any opportunity to represent yourself in places and locations. So.
Would that be taxation without
representation? Of course it would be. And they should pay attention to us. Just who do they colonials think they are?
We have red in our uniform.
Yeah, we are on our way to make a point to you with muskets. So, hey, liberty doesn't come from the barrel of a gun, sir. Well, we'll see. And we did. And we celebrated the other day, the 4th of July, because we broke free from the yoke of servitude to interdependence on each other for community unity. So this is what I tell the kids, when you see that kid who's a firefighter going by you and he has spent his life. And in some of these guys, where do these women and men come from that are paramedics and firefighters who give everything to us? And I've been grateful for the cool weather this summer. I told the firemen the other day, thank goodness that we've had so much cool weather because there's been no big, huge fires. And they spent 4 years, yes, of course, knock on wood, and say prayers and get your little thing with beads out. And so I won't say that other word. But what I can say is this. When you see them and they are willing and able to give and risk their lives to save ours, that's when we as a community are at our best. This humanitarian relief that they get. And then many of us go up and we bring food to them. We gift them whatever we can. We help their families when they're deployed. And you trying to help the firefighter families. And I remember during going up to Santa Rosa to for Big John, one of the assistant chiefs up there, and just doing a show for all the firefighter families. And it was smoky. And, I had a hard time doing my voices, and the kids were going, your voices suck now. I was like, I'm coughing on some smoke out here. Can you give me a break? They start laughing, right? Your voices used to be better when you did our grade school. Smoke is in the air, kid. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
But I think that interdependence is what.
Well, I used to go along when I lived in the city in. When did this start? I can't remember exactly. Around the 80s.
Yeah.
And I would watch these guys spend a whole day in a bar watching the ball game on television,
right,
and having beers. And so I found this retreat house, and I set this thing up. It lasted 15 years.
Wow.
I got some help from some very fine people, and we went to this retreat house. And the guys played cards, the men and women, and we cooked together. But what I did was I gave them all a job,
right,
so that they all felt a part of the thing.
Right.
So the guys peeling potatoes or shucking oysters or corn, and next night they might be stirring the pot in the kitchen, and everybody had something to do.
Yeah.
So the 4th of July ended, we always had.
It was on the 4th of July. Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
So we depended on
What
each
do
other.
we have in common?
Yeah, what we have in common. And what we had in common was you didn't have to stay hang out all by yourself,
Right,
drinking beer all day. You could come and swim and play cards and
laugh.
Laugh, and you could have your cocktails as well.
Right.
The only rule I had was said no sore heads.
Good.
No, I don't want anybody coming up here dumping their garbage on everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
And
Good. No sore heads.
limit your political opinions to yourself.
Yeah. Good.
So that everybody.
No
And
sore
we played,
heads.
stupid games and fixed up the dining room. But it was all. It was a community effort.
Right.
So what we did one year, last 2, 3, and all of a sudden it was 15 years we did that.
Wow.
And toward the
Good
end,
for you, Eric.
it was
Good.
It was. I don't know if you ever knew that Silver Penny Farm.
Right. Up north. Yeah.
Yeah, you know where
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
That's where.
Off 116. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And what?
And when you know who needs it most are the isolates, the ones who can find unity, and nobody cares. When they find out they're part of a group, and they don't have to self-isolate or isolate with their sorrows or pain or early childhood traumas, but that we unify and we're all hanging together, that unity heals them.
Yeah.
That heals them.
Well,
sure.
we had one person in 15 years who left the weekend, and it was because of a relationship with a guy who wasn't paying any attention to her.
Right.
So, and people gave me credit for a lot of that, but it wasn't. All I did was organize the first one. After that, everybody pitched in, and they all wanted to know we're going to do this next year. And
Well,
before
I
long,
is
everybody was part of it.
I is illness, we is wellness, where we together spells wellness, because that the first thing I learned in reaching out as a young medic is that when you saw a person who was lonely or isolated or self-isolative, you push past that and make sure they're integrated into the group. And no matter what it was, you always go to the other guys and you go, listen to what I'm saying to you. You have to let this person in. Don't be mean, don't be rude, don't be cruel. We need this person. Team is together. Everyone, anyone matters. So when you have that, and that's team, everyone, anyone matters. And you see that person, you don't think, I always tell them, you'll be surprised at who becomes the heroic person who rises to the occasion because they were included. Include.
I think this is why our basketball team in this area have been so
Warriors.
successful.
Yeah.
Because they've grasped the team concept.
Amen.
And starting from the best players, the top, right on down, they've embraced everyone who's on the team.
Right.
So it's the people that showed up for their parade in town and the kind of adulation, all deserving from a bunch of guys playing basketball.
Yep. Because they were honoring the team spirit that Steph Curry lived and Coach Kerr talked about. It's all of us in Uvalde. It's all of us dealing with the shootings. Folks, I've been dealing with school shootings since the 70s. I've been filming on that. And the kids that are in this studio with me now were on my show. Trevor Henley was on my show in 1999. And he's followed me into this work of helping to heal and restore the community, be involved with Rotary, do things that build up and build community. And he and young Evan Barbieri, who's a security expert for Barbieri Security, those two guys were really good on my show in 99 after Columbine. Mm-hmm. And Columbine was the warning signal that we're still not paying attention to. And when you see the isolated kids that were those two young guys who slaughtered their own classmates, and the two young men recently is this week we had a young person in Highland Park, Illinois. This does not stop until we build that, what Father Harry's talking about. The community spirit starts inside with locating a way to help everybody gather together in community unity and give to each other and just sometimes just share your sorrows and pains and sadnesses in an honest and forthright way and say, I hurt because of this. If somebody had been talking to that youngster, Cremo, he's writing animated pictures. He goes to a synagogue as a preemptive idea for killing people in a synagogue. He goes to this location and thinks about going up to Madison to continue his nightmarish assaults. All I can tell you is I've worked for years. These young men are crying with bullets and not tears. And if we can start to feel the unity that's needed in a community, it's for us to pump the brakes on the self-important stuff, set your technology down, and get into the eyes of sorrowful, grief-stricken people who are wounded or hurting and isolating for that deliberate reason, and then teaching that, amplifying that, just like we're doing now on camera. You're talking about you as a priest, you listen to confessions. So it bears great wisdom
and
in
if
you.
I listen to your confession, I have to bring my lunch.
Had to go. Had to go there.
Yeah.
Couldn't help
Couldn't
that.
help it.
And
Couldn't help
the wife was sitting there going, yeah, finally. So
Remember, let me just
Yeah.
drop this in because you knew Shel Silverstein.
oh yeah.
And in one of his children's books, he wrote, as God talking about, God says to Harry, "Hey, Harry, want to steer the universe?" "Sure," says I'll give it a try. "Where do I sit? How much do I get? When do we eat?" And God says, "Give me back the wheel. I don't think you're ready yet."
Yeah.
So all of these things, what you think depend on you, there's a lot of dependence going on.
Right. And just extending yourself outward to help others and not thinking just only of your control, your food, your wealth, your abundance, what's in it for me. And I hear that quite a bit. Everybody can tell you what their stock portfolio says, but there's a line by a great writer and entrepreneur, Swedenborg: "The rich always want to be richer, and the powerful always want more power, but you've got to leave the happy alone." and a happy is a person filled with the spirit of connected love and compassion. The real successes in America aren't the people that love money and use people and use their hearts as your personal toilet paper. They're the people that love people and then use money. And the wealthy and the privileged, we're at a time where we have to figure out, folks, whether we love the power of unconditional power or the power of unconditional love. And that's the simple choice. It is, you can admire somebody who's accumulated, but if they're not including in their accumulations others to make it beneficial to them as well, they will find the karmic retribution or what we say, the lack of grace.
So in your experience with incarceration,
Right.
a lot of times you hear when the prisoner goes in, the advice is keep your mouth shut, don't say anything, don't disturb anybody
Right.
else, and just do your time.
Yes.
And how does, when you're incarcerated, how in the world do you ever have a chance to trust or depend on anybody? I mean, convicts are con people who con.
Yeah, got it.
And who are you ever going to believe or trust? And in that situation, how does anyone ever recover or be able to come back around and make a difference?
Oh, that's a great question, Harry. When Father Jim Ward, who's an Episcopal priest, took us over to work at San Quentin, I got men up sharing that from their earliest childhood they were traumatized by assaults, some of a sexual nature, some of a physical nature and abuse. And in sharing with other prisoners, you could feel a palpable movement in them when a person's sharing their sorrow and trauma, because we call it trauma informed, that this person makes these choices because there was a divorce in their family, abuse in their family, sexual abuse in their family, legitimate hatred and violence in the family, all these things at early childhood trauma. And one of the kids was, he's not a kid, but he had stunted growth because he was in his 30s, and you could feel he still lived in the trauma of that childhood when he shared that his father taught him how to break into houses. And he and his father broke into houses and stole people and then hurt people who tried to stop them from stealing from them. And he and his father injured some people severely, and one of them passed away from shock from being a senior citizen, and they were held accountable. And now, 22 years later, is the first time he gave it up in front of the men that he was charged with murder and that he had taken the life of somebody. And as I looked to the back, I I don't want to go into great detail. One of the correctional officers was crying. And he said, you don't get it, Big Mike. He goes, we have similar backgrounds, just different pathways to help others.
Yeah.
And he goes, I admire the guy for sharing that. But he goes, I chose not to become that kind of person and to help house, incarcerate, and keep my community secure from these kind of predators. And I said, well, I honor both. And he said, I see you at church on Sundays at St. Vincent's. I said, I didn't know that. And so we know that those women and men are out there that secure us and help us, cops, firemen, people that are building community, helping community, but as well, they honor and understand why it's important for us to help. Think of what we were talking about before. Mark Wahlberg came back. He's employing a lot of people in his family and his life, and he's done good to do good to do good. And it's he's a faith-based kid, I think. And he also, you probably don't know this, he offered Mel Gibson opportunities to do employment, and Gibson had made some errors, and he is going out and talking to people about his childhood trauma that caused him to be the kind of angry and say anti-Semitic things to a cop, and he's asking for all of us to see him. Yeah. He's worth $500 million. That doesn't mean anything as much as your name. Right?
Padre and the Pritch.
There you go.
So I had this experience way back when, in the early 50s or late 50s, of a priest who used to work, a Jesuit priest who worked in Chester. Is that a federal penitentiary?
That's a state. I worked there. I worked in Chester. Yeah, I worked as
so that's a tough place, though,
yeah.
right?
Ooh.
And they used to send a lot of the mafioso guys there.
Yeah.
So this priest came and he talked about he was the chaplain there.
Right.
He was talking about to all of us goody two-shoes who read the Bible, you know, and he was talking about.
We call that clueless, Harry. Go ahead.
He was talking about these terrible men in prison who did all these awful things. I mean, not just murder, but torture and all this to get information from people. And then he started saying, now it's just a matter of degrees. He said, look at you boys out there. Tell me you've never taken money out of your mother's purse.
Right.
Or you've not cheated on a test. You looked at somebody else's paper.
Right.
Those are all wrongs, but it's just a matter of degree.
Exactly.
And in the men that I work with in Chester, he said, it's a matter of degrees. And he said all of the things that you mentioned, you know, their background and relationships and what. Oh, I got a phone call. It says I should go.
It's from God telling him, continue on. You're making a good point.
No,
Go ahead.
Even better than that. It's your wife.
Oh! She was not going to. Anyway. Burned again. Go ahead.
No, she doesn't want to see you anymore.
No, yes. Go away.
No, she opened the door to the garage.
Don't go there. Oh,
so anyway, this chaplain made a great point to all of us, and our minds were being molded at that time. And
right.
Here I am 60, 70 years later recalling the story because it made an impression on me.
Well, do you remember when you told me that you and Bishop Niederauer went over and worked at San Quentin and said Mass for all the guys at Christmas time? It was Christmas Eve. Yeah. And you walked out of there and you felt, you remember how you felt on the way home with the bishop? That you had, right?
Yeah, it's Christmas Eve.
Right.
You're going in the car, on a freeway, back to the cathedral,
right,
with an orchestra of 25, 30 people and a choir of 20, and they're going to be praising God. And all these guys that we had Mass with in they're going back to a 6x8 cell.
Right.
And lucky if they had somebody sent them a little package or
Anything.
a
for
fruit
Christmas.
cake.
Remembered them.
Yeah, remembered them.
Right.
And there they are, all alone. Now, that doesn't mean they're excused from whatever crime they committed.
Right.
But it's such a...
Held accountable, but loved and redeemed if they can redeem themselves.
yeah.
What did you learn from that experience? Because you're with the bishop of the whole archdiocese, and you told me that it was quiet. You were feeling good about what you had seen, felt, and witnessed from the souls of these needy young men incarcerated, and you extend the Christ light into them at Mass. What does it do for you and the Archbishop on the way back?
Well, you thank your lucky stars that
Right.
from the kind of people you've been associated with in your life to be able to know the difference between right and wrong. And even if you've made bad judgments along the line, they've been minimal and they've been less
Right.
than major kind of crimes that would put you behind bars.
Raised in the light to be a light unto the world. And then we're welcoming Christ and the Christ light into the world. And he was, of course, I'm not getting religious here, folks.
No,
I'm
you're
just
not really. Because I'll stop you. But
I'm just getting
I-
philosophical.
When we came out of the chapel, I told you this too. There's a line about 10 people to see the Archbishop, and my line is about 40 guys,
Yeah.
So they had all seen me on television.
On TV.
So it was like somebody they knew.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
one
see
guy
the TV
comes up
Mass,
and
right?
I said, why don't you go over there and get in the Archbishop's line and tell him when you come up, look at Father Harry's line. He ought to be making more money. So all of a sudden, I see this little guy go up there, and he looks over me and he
Manipulation? He learned it in the seminary at Kenrick. He practiced it over at the College of North America.
Okay.
All right. Anyway.
So anyway, the Archbishop, he looks over at me, and he tells the guy, he said, look, he signs my check.
Wow.
And neither one of us were making enough to make any difference.
No pot. Right, I got it.
One Christmas Eve, we sat in the car over there because they had, this was even worse. They were missing a screwdriver.
Oh,
So it was shut down
right.
until they found the screwdriver. Well,
Right.
we sat in the car from 6:30 to about 20 to 8, and finally they come out and said, it's too late now.
Yeah, we can't do it. Yeah.
We can't do it because we just found the screwdriver, but it's too late to put this on.
When I used to go in there, they had a no hostage policy. You had to sign a form that said they will not negotiate or bargain for you if you're taken hostage. It's
Sayonara.
you're sayonara, man, or at least at risk. And I remember going in there with Bread and Roses in the 80s. They put a picture of Mimi Farina, Boss Skaggs, and I in Rolling Stone. And, nothing impressed any of my idiot friends back in St. Louis. And they went, you were in Rolling Stone. You were in Rolling. I was like, yeah, I was working at a prison. They went, why would you go to a prison to get into Rolling Stone? It's like the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Why can't you get up in front of, do a show with Boss Skaggs? Well, I did do a show. I opened for Boss a bunch. But, we were offering something to help the community. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Good going.
Cynic is somebody who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing.
And there have never been any statues built to cynics.
Wow.
Who said that?
You just now,
Yeah.
30 seconds ago, which was amazing because
Yeah, no,
I like the
remember it
line.
from some famous person said there. Never any statues built to cynics.
Yeah, and well, the line I loved the most was from the singer of this song and the finale as how we achieve wisdom. At the death of her first son, she was a cynic. At the death of her second son, she was a seeker. But at the death of her third son, she was on her knees, a believer. God will get you where you need to be, believing in the power of the higher power. And, you know, if it takes suffering and sorrow and pain to accommodate you on your journey home, to wake you up, to make you have an attitude of gratitude in this latitude, God will get you there. It's the instruction that we need to take early and often, and especially in prevention. We can do things to stop a young man in Highland Park from pouring his sorrows out from a machine gun.
So, what do you have to say about people who are, George Carlin uses the word stuff. They collect stuff.
Stuff, yeah.
So what am I going to do with all this stuff?
Oh, Harry, we had a young kid from Chad. He made me cry. He was the sweetest kid. He lived with us for a while, and he goes, Big Mike, you Americans, you got junk in your basement, junk in your garage, junk in your attic. You do not have time to go visit the junk you save before you die. Why don't you have a big giant garage sale in Africa so we can sell your junk to the Europeans who will buy it, and we will then have better lives? And I start laughing. I go, you're such a genius kid. And he goes, yes, but nobody hears my wisdom. And I was like, I love that kid. He went to USF for a semester. And when I took him to watch me open for... he was the smartest young heart, and I took him to watch me open for Kenny Rogers at the Circle Star, and he just sat there and he goes, they liked you just as much as they like the big star. And I go, oh, no, don't. Please, when you get home, don't say that to my wife. Don't. Because she'll think my ego is going to be getting bigger and bigger because you're praising me. And he goes, okay, should I say mean things? And I go, no, I'm not asking you. But he was just such a great kid, and he had such a beautiful heart. And that's...
How did he end up at your house?
Well, I always, we've taken so many kids in over the years to everybody asks me, I go, I wanted my children to know they were raised in privilege. We live in Marin County. They went to nice Catholic schools. I want them to know, and they did. One is a doctor, one is writing with all these great ethnically diverse people at Warner Brothers, and building a whole platform for young people to join in to become writers. And then my daughter is... I'm so proud of her because she's like me, a neurodiverse person, empathic, more than just wise of spirit. And she massages people's heads who are coming in after COVID, shampooing their hair, and they fall apart. They're so isolated. This 14-year-old girl just fell apart crying.
A therapist.
A therapist. She styles women's hair and listens to their life situations. That's a therapist. And it's more important than anything else. They'll tell you in the South, the most beloved people are the hairdresser and the barber, because they nurture you. Mm-hmm. They listen to you. They tell stories. They tell jokes.
What's that old Southern film about? The Steel Magnolia?
Yeah.
Wasn't the woman a hairdresser?
They're all hairdressers, yeah. And the same with, if you remember, the smartest FBI agent was Gene Hackman in Mississippi Burning. He knew that where he could get the most intelligence was from the local hairdresser, who was married to the vicious cop who was a murderer, who killed the kids that were protesting that kind of behavior, Swerner and Cheney. And it was based on a real story of an FBI agent down, and it was called Mississippi. Was Rob Reiner did the film. Mm-hmm. But if you want to know what's going on, you ask the bartender, you ask the barber, you ask the therapist in town, and you say, what why is all this hate coming up? Why is all
You know
this
what
hate?
they asked me? You're a priest. Have you heard Pritchard's confession? I say, yeah,
Why,
really.
just like, no.
Nothing going on there.
Oh boy, look at what time it is. It's time for the Padre and Pritch show to end.
Oh, I thought so. But I lost my clock here when someone called and said, your wife wants you at home, right?
She wants me home. This is a really serious question. Are you buying lunch?
No,
Oh, why?
I have no money. Now he's going to cry and oink like a pig. And in the meantime, it's the Padre and the Pritch saying goodbye. We'll see you again next week. God bless.
Stay too blessed to be stressed. Stay too blessed to be stressed.